Welcome back to the Limely Healing Podcast.
Where laughter meets inner peace.
We're your host, Shaka.
And I'm Kiana.
And we just want to thank you for tuning in to another episode of your favorite podcast. We really want to thank everyone for tuning in today. And we want to thank everyone for subscribing. And if you're new here, please ensure you hit that subscribe button. Remember, subscribing is free, guys.
Free.
Thank you guys for all your likes, comments, all your messages that you sent to us. We really appreciate it. And thank you for tuning in. We have a really, really good topic today, but what we want to do before is, I don't know if you guys were able to tune in, but last Saturday we had our first collaboration with We Got Melody. Shout out to We Got Melody for hosting us.
That was so much fun.
Yeah, for hosting us on her show. It was really good. We had the opportunity to talk about Lyman and healing on the platform, and also do a little game with her. She tested our Creelies. We did pretty well, I think.
We did. We absolutely did. A+, okay?
Okay, but thank you for that. Thank you for everyone who tuned into that. And if you didn't, you can go back to our Facebook page and you will see the stuff there. So definitely give that a watch. It was really, really good. So what do we want to talk about today, Kiana?
So today we are going to be talking about childhood. We want to focus on, in particular, a feedback that we received from a viewer who gave us permission to share this with you guys. But today we're going to talk about childhood trauma, and this may be a triggering topic for some people. So please, be advised that it does cover a little bit of neglect. And so, with that, be mindful of whether or not it's something you can listen to. But yes, today we're going to be highlighting a viewer's feedback or something that they shared with us. We will share it anonymously, of course, and we're going to dive into that some more. So before we get into the episode, I'll go ahead and read the viewer's question.
Or comment, yeah.
Yeah, more so a comment, yeah. So okay, so hey guys, I hope this message finds you well. First off, big up Uno for the powerful work you're doing, especially with our recent episode on mental health. It hit close to home, and I just have to share how it opened my eyes to something deep within me. Something from my younger days back in the Caribbean that still bother me till now. Growing up, I was kind of like the forgotten one in the family. With my parents always caught up with work and their own troubles, they didn't really have the bandwidth to check in upon the emotional side of things for me. Yes, me never shared of food or clothes, but emotionally, it was like a drought season. No real affection or support. I used to imagine myself in these grand hills where I was the star, getting all the love and cheers, something so different from the quiet nights and the school shows with empty seats because nobody came to watch. This kind of neglect, it planted a seed of worthlessness inside me, making me feel like I'm not enough, like nobody could really love me for me. Carrying these heavy feelings into adulthood, I found myself always trying to be perfect, fearing any form of rejection like it was the plague, whether in my friendships or at work. But when your episode on mental health played through my speakers, it was like a light turned on. It dawned on me that all these moves were just me trying to protect that little kid inside who never wanted to feel left out again. Hearing your discussion about different ways your mental health can be affected, it nudged me to seek therapy, to start taking care of that young one inside who never got her fair chance of attention or kindness. So I just want to say thanks a million for bringing these issues to light and for helping me and many others to see that our past doesn't have to dictate our future. Healing is real, and it's happening. Thanks to the bravery and wisdom shared on your show. Bless up. So yeah, first of all, wow.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that with me, because that takes a level of vulnerability.
Correct.
And openness that is not easy.
No.
So thank you for giving us the care and the space to share your story with, because we appreciate that. We do not take that for granted, because that could not have been easy. And I commend you for starting therapy, getting the help that you need, and nothing is wrong with that. Some of us may need to go to professional. Personally, I think everyone should, but
Everyone needs therapy.
everybody needs therapy. I commend her for doing the work, because that's not easy.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times we were brought up a certain way, and we just kind of become adults, and we think that's the only way. But no, not necessarily. We can change if we want to.
Yeah. And what I liked about it too, and that's why we wanted to share it with you guys, is, she talked about emotional abuse. A lot of times we feel that trauma comes from something that is just physical. If someone in the home is experiencing some kind of physical abuse, or they're seeing some kind of physical abuse or alcohol abuse or something that, dire,
Yeah.
you think that, oh, well, if it's not that, well, I'm okay, but her story shows that even emotionally,
Yeah.
right, being neglected could cause these things to happen, right? So that's why we want to talk about, childhood trauma and what that does to you as an adult, right?
Absolutely.
So childhood trauma basically can be anything bad that happens to a child before they turn the age of 18, right? Now, this could be their feelings, physical, or anything that happens to their mind, right? So that's basically what, childhood trauma is. It doesn't have to be something, they experience some kind of violence or anything,
Right,
but anything bad what happens before the age of 18.
So
that's basically what
what
it
you're
is.
saying is childhood trauma is more than the typical traumas that we usually, identify, whether physical or,
Correct.
Verbal. It's more than that.
It's more than that, right? So
Okay.
it could be anything bad. And a good way that you could, and I love this because, I saw this, a good way that you could say or know if you had childhood trauma, right? It's a question you can ask yourself. Would you want your child having the same childhood that you have?
Ooh.
And if the answer is no, then you have experienced childhood trauma.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That is interesting. Repeat that one more time.
Okay. so
Repeat that.
basically, if you don't want your child to have the same childhood that you grew up in, you've experienced childhood trauma.
So you're saying if you don't want your child to be in the same environment that you grew up in,
Environment or experience the things.
that you may have encountered childhood trauma.
Correct. Cause
Wow.
because a lot of people might say, well, not me, I'm good.
Yeah.
My dad or mom, they used to drink and used to fight. But it goes beyond that. Like, for example, with this viewer that, she said that she was lonely.
Yeah.
Right? No one came to support her. And that's a lonely place to be. Right? So I definitely understand that. But what we want to talk about is the different kinds of
Childhood traumas?
childhood traumas. Yeah. Okay, so we know the regular one, physical abuse, right? So basically, obviously, this is anything physical, beating, hitting, burning, and
But in Caribbean society, we say you get licks, you get a whooping, because a lot of people will, the Bible says, spirit of rod spoiled child.
That's true. Now, I think I can't say that I'm fully on the hitting. Looking at the literature, reading research, and all these different things, you see a lot of cons with a lot of pro. I don't want to get into if that's right or wrong, right? But I think for this conversation, I think when it's extreme, and not only that, where is it coming from or how is it coming? Because sometimes, even if you you hit a child a little, but for what reason? Like the child crying, so you hit them, or I gave something to cry for, like that. I feel, to me, that's kind of a borderline abuse, because if you're beating them for no reason, I would consider physical abuse. Because what are you teaching the child? No matter what I do, I'm gonna get beat. So I consider that physical abuse. The reason behind it and how extreme it is.
Okay.
Right? So we also have emotional or psychological abuse, right? So this involves verbal abuse and, cussing, any constant criticism, rejection, lowering that child's self-esteem. That's definitely emotional or
So
psychological
when parents
abuse.
be like, "You're stupid, you're stupid,"
Oh my God! Don't even say that. That absolutely is emotional abuse. Why would you tell a child you're stupid, right? Because I feel, we obviously feel a lot for kids, especially on this show. But for you to say something that extreme, and I know sometimes we we do these things without thinking, right? But that's one of the reasons why we're having this show. Like, think what you're saying to a child. Would you want someone to tell you you're stupid? Think about it. Would you want, as big me, not hands, bro? I want somebody to tell me that, so I'm not going to tell a child that, right?
But some people would argue that some kids will push their parents to the limit, so then they have to retaliate with these words or these,
What was that you sent to me? Some adults want to treat their child like adults because they never had a chance to be a child, right? So
repeat that again for them, because they need to sink in.
Yes, some adults treat their children like adults because they never got to be a child. So you can't want to treat you like, oh well, they come for me, I come for you.
Yeah,
that's a child.
Yeah,
you squaring up with not with an adult. Right, you're squaring up with a child, so absolutely not. They can't push your limits for you to do something abusive.
Yeah, or some would definitely expect a child to have the discipline of an adult, even though they themselves do not have it. So it's interesting to see.
Yeah, exactly. So the next one is sexual abuse, which we know is basically any kind of sexual act or anything inappropriate happening, inappropriate touching, any harassment or stuff like that. So those are like basically like the physical one, the outwardly one that you can see that is quite obvious.
Absolutely.
That falls under childhood trauma.
Yeah. And then obviously we have neglect. And this is a tricky one, because a lot of times people believe, especially parents, some parents kind of throw this back in your face. I provide for you, I give you clothes, I give you food. Ma'am, sir, that's the bare minimum. That's the basics. That is what is expected of parents. You brought someone into this world, that's what's required.
Yeah.
So a lot of times children experience neglect where their basic needs are not being met, whether it's food, whether it's clothes, whether it's shelter, whether it's medical care, education, etc. And and that could be due to many things. It could be because poverty. That can be a form of punishment because the child did something or didn't do something, but you withhold that from them, which neglect is a form of trauma, childhood trauma.
Yeah.
Because once again, part of being children is that whoever you're in the care of, that person needs to provide for you in those ways.
Yes.
Those are basic needs. They're not extra.
Yeah.
They're basic needs.
Correct.
And then we also have emotional neglect, which is one of those things that we do not talk a lot about, especially in the Caribbean, because the opposite can be true. You can have your basic needs being met. You got a clothes, you got a food, you got a house, you got all these things, and that's where they stop it. They're not providing for you emotionally. They're not giving you a listening ear. They're not supporting you and your emotions to help you grow and all those things. And that's also a form of neglect, because if you're withholding affection from a child, if you're not allowing a child to express himself in a healthy manner, that is emotional neglect. And that's something people don't realize, because a lot of time people put emphasis on the physical needs being met, but the emotional needs is also something that needs to be nurtured as well.
Yeah. And that's, once again, it's something that we talk a lot on the show, especially in the Caribbean society. We focus on, well, you get food, you get this, you get that, and then they never focus. Once you going to school and you well dressed and you get food in your lunch kit, that's all that matters. That's what we think, but it's so much more what it takes to bring up a good person. I feel that's something that we need to focus on.
That happens a lot. They don't realize that a lot of people, talk about it growing up, they're having it all, but in their home lacking love. And that's a big one, because some people, all they would need, they would trade the money for the love. Having that emotional need met is so crucial, especially in developing a child in a healthy way, because if not, years down the road, it turns into trauma.
Yeah, exactly. Because one of the next one is witnessing domestic violence, right? That's a big one in the home. For me, I saw that a lot growing up. And even though I had my needs met, like physical needs and food was met, sometimes you experience, domestic violence, mom, dad fighting. When I go to school, I don't even want to eat within the lunch kit because I'm taking on what I witnessed last night or what I just witnessed at home. So
True.
so it's way more than just what, physical stuff that can be provided, right? It's emotional is there. So witnessing domestic violence, that's a huge one. That's quite an obvious one, right?
That's
Like
right.
that could absolutely affect you, cause childhood trauma because we're seeing violence in front of us all the time, right?
Yeah.
Or in front of the kids. So that's a huge one. Separation or divorce, parental separation and divorce. That's a huge one too. Because now you were together and now mommy and daddy fighting and now they're apart and now he's saying this about her, she's saying this about her, the child got to travel back and forth, right? Now I'm not saying that you should stay together for a child,
Right.
please, absolutely not. Personally, I think that's the worst thing you could do, but that's another episode for another day. But how can you do it effectively? How can
Yes,
you do
in
it
a
properly?
cordial
How
way.
can you do it? Because when you came together and make this child, right? Now you're apart because of whatever issues you might have, it's still affecting this child.
Yeah.
So you need to think about how can I do it in a proper way, right? Substance abuse, right? Drugs, alcohol. Once again, those are big ones that affects a child's growth or causes childhood trauma. Obviously, because that person is addicted at that point and not focusing on the child's need but focusing on their needs, right? And another one is mental illness in the home. Obviously, when someone is mentally ill and not receiving the help that they need, that affects a child's upbringing as well. That definitely cements childhood trauma. So those are some of the things.
Yeah,
that you
no,
wanna consider.
absolutely.
What else? What else?
Definitely. Like I remember, like even though I don't have a lot of memories about my childhood, but I definitely remember, moments where I've witnessed domestic violence, and that stays with you. Like it stays with you, and those who've experienced it as well can, attest to that. Yeah. So some other things that affects kids and which can eventually turn into childhood trauma, like obviously like things like death of a parent or a sibling. That is a huge loss, and that shapes you in a profound way, and it's like an extremely traumatic event because it's like that happened to, especially if you're young and you don't have a full understanding of what that is. It has to be extremely baffling to a child because they don't have the mental capacity to understand what was happening.
Correct.
So a lot of things goes unanswered on in a way it's kind of like a hole is forever missing because, and I feel like that is typically what happens when you lose a loved one.
Yeah.
But as a child, that shapes you so dramatically,
Bullying. With that, to me, too, especially you said that the parent or a sibling or whatever, a lot of times the parents who are suffering themselves and they don't know how to deal with a child, but not talking about it or pretending it didn't happen. I feel like a lot of times people would do that.
To move forward,
and that would definitely, the child would suffer from that. So think about it, even though you're struggling, because a lot of times with all of these things, a lot of parents are probably saying, well, I did the best that I could with what I had because I was dealing with these things. But your child is also dealing with these things. Like you're responsible.
That is true.
For for helping them to deal with it as well.
And the kids are often forgotten in the equation, and that is something we need to be mindful of. Bullying is a huge problem because they can be bullied by peers. They could be bullied by family members as well.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times, some people's first bully is their own parents.
Yes.
And that is something that needs to stop. Can you imagine the first person to tell you you're ugly as your parent? Like, we need to stop that. Stop that. Because at the end of the day, guess what? how you look is beyond your control. Mommy and daddy came together,
And they got it from them.
and it's their genetics manifesting in you. So you, how dare you criticize your creation? Okay, because that makes
true.
no sense.
That's true.
But you know, bullying is very traumatic.
Yeah.
You know, like for me, and it was like a shameful past. I do not like this part of me. But in high school, you know, I was very much so a bully, you know. More so I was following the crowd, and it's a very shameful time in my life when I look back
you
at
learned.
it. But you live and you learn, and you know, I
And you were a
thank
child,
God.
and you were a child.
Yeah, and thank God I grew past that. But you know, it was definitely a period of my life I do not, you know, look back and be like proud of. Natural disasters and accidents. You know, we talk about this in our mental health episode about how a lot of times, if you're living in Caribbean islands that are prone to hurricanes, earthquakes, and so on,
And floods. Yeah.
and
Like Guyana,
it's
floods.
yeah, in Guyana there's a lot of flooding. It's traumatizing because once again, it's something that is a lot of times life or death. People's lives are being lost. You know, your home is gone. It's like a very traumatic event. So those things also shape the way that you know you view the world. You know, and can be traumatizing, and if not dealt with properly, can cause like you know triggering reactions in the future. I can remember in high school, we experienced like you know this on the coastline of Guyana because it's below sea level. It was like a huge flood. So our school was closed down. Many schools was closed down. A lot of people were misplaced. We had to go back to our hometown, and we you know was there for months. But I remember on the news a lot of people lost their lives because diseases you know from the water. And that whole encounter was very interesting to say the least. But you know, natural disasters and accidents, like even like car accidents. We're from a small town.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if there's like a car accident, you know, like the entire community feels it because more times than not, you know that person, you know, and it's very traumatizing.
It is.
Because it's like, damn, we all use the same roadway, you know, and you just pray and hope that you and your loved ones are safe. But it's very traumatizing to witness, and it's just so sad because it's like, what can be done, you know, to be different? And as a child, you're experiencing these kind of things, you're hearing these kind of stuff, and you're so confused with what's going on.
It's scared.
Yeah. And you know, like community violence, because at the end of the day, if you're part of a community and if you're living in the Caribbean, you know, as a small knitted community, if you're abroad, more times than not, you find yourself in a knitted community because, you know, once again, we try to gravitate to a piece of home. And whenever, again, if there's things that are affecting the community, whether it's shooting, stabbing, whatever, you know, violent crimes, it affects the community because, you know, if there's like a party, like a party, you know, because a lot of times we keep our own types of Caribbean party, and something happens there, that affects the community, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And because you're part of that community, it definitely affects you, you know, and because you feel for that person, even though you may not be there, right? You still feel for that person. Even you might know the person, you might know them directly, but you know somebody that knows somebody
that knows that person,
right?
Yes,
and it feels for that person. And so, as an adult now, you got to figure out how to shelter your child from that kind of trauma.
Absolutely. And that's not easy, you know, because once again, like you said, a lot of times the adult is going through those emotions in real time. So to navigate that with your child can be hard. But what we're saying is, we know it's hard, we acknowledge that, but don't feel to pull your child into the equation. A lot of times kids are a lot smarter than we give them credit for. And, you know, a lot of times you can be straight up front with them, be straight with them, but, you know, try to do so in a child appropriate way.
Yeah, and even with, you know, you have sudden reactions, nothing is wrong with that, but you can go back. You know, we feel like, oh, well, something happened, you scream, you know, that kind of scared the child, you know, seeing somebody scream, cry, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
But you could still go back and explain to them what's happening. Nothing is wrong with that. Dealing with that emotion in that time, nothing is wrong. Even if you yell at the child and say, oh, you're stupid. right? Even though that's wrong, go back and do what? Apologize. They say what? Caribbean parents don't do that, right?
Nope.
That's what they say. But I know that
Seldomly.
we can do better. I know we can do better. Go back and apologize and say, you know what? Son, daughter, I was, upset or whatever.
Yeah.
But that's not what I should have said. That's not what I should have done. I'm sorry.
Absolutely.
Right?
And I think another thing too, and looking back, in my own childhood, I feel like I would have had a lot of like reassurance if parents or even adults around me took the time to just explain. They don't even have to give you that. You don't even have to give all of the information. Just help us to understand. Remember, this is our children. For children, this is their first time doing life, and not a lot of times, they look to you. They look to the parents, to the adults in their life to help guide the way. They don't know what they're doing either. So a lot of times they feel as though, we leave things up in the air and expect their young minds to connect the dot. They may not connect the dots, or they may do so in the wrong way. So if you can help bring clarity, take that 5 minutes just to say, hey, mommy screamed because, I lost a friend or whatever the situation is. Take the time to explain, because whatever is happening, remember that that's their life too, and some things can be like so small to you, but for a child it's the biggest thing, because their world is much smaller than yours, because they're growing.
Correct. And a lot of things that people would say, stay out of grown folks' business. Like, you creating a scene, the child lives there, and the child want to know what's happening.
Wait, the one still the grown folks' business, but when it's time for a child be in grown folks' business to do chores that are beyond that of their age, it's okay.
It's okay. Right. But because they characterizing what's child and what's adult, right? But yelling instead of grown folks' business, some things are not for kids. That is true. That is facts. But what can you do about that? Say, you know what? Listen, this is kind of a little beyond your age, right? But just know that I'm hurt, that's why I'm acting like this, or this and this happened, this is why I'm acting like this. Tell them it in a PG way.
Yes.
In a PG-13 way. You don't gotta be like, sell to grown folks' business. Like, what are you doing? Like, why are we doing that?
Because, and then there's the flip side of that. Parents who overshare with their kids.
Oh my God.
Because
you can whole different episode. Don't even start with that.
That's also traumatizing to a child.
Very traumatizing.
Oversharing your problems emotionally, depending on that child to be your support system, is very traumatizing to a child.
Correct.
So a lack of explanation and an over explanation is harmful. Correct. So we're asking to find somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, and that's called being parentified, but we don't want to get technical, right? Making that child bigger than what they're supposed to be. So that's something that you definitely don't want at all, because like for me, my mom shared a lot of her, like my dad and her issues with me. And I was and when I met friends or whatever, I always had a lot of friends that were way older than me. And they would be like, Shaka, you're so grown. I used to feel nice, and then my therapist was like, no, you were an adult too young. Like, you knew too much, right?
Yeah.
And then growing up, I was like, I shouldn't have known that.
Yeah.
I shouldn't have known that. But so try to keep it PG-13. That's my advice, right?
Age appropriate.
Age appropriate. Age appropriate. And then when they get older, you can be like, this is what happened, and that's okay.
Yes.
That's okay. That's having a good, wholesome childhood, and that's what we want, right?
Facts.
So how can childhood trauma show up in adults, right? Because that's what we want to talk about. We want to talk about what happened as a child, how can it show up in adults, because we want you to identify, oh, maybe this is what happened to me. Or you being a parent, you can say, you know what, I don't want this to happen. Let me do something about it now. And if you're an adult, let me fix it, because we can fix things, right? But what we got to be aware, right? So so you can get like emotional and psychological symptoms, of course, which includes anxiety, panic attacks, depression, low self-esteem, feeling of worthlessness, like our viewer mentioned before, right? Intense or unexplained sadness, right? Because sometimes you're so sad you don't even know why,
Why, yeah.
right? And it's something in the past, like things in the past affect you. A lot of time, especially in the Caribbean, it's like, why you don't let the past in the past? Ah, ma'am, sir, when I hear that, I get mad because that's the past is what affects us, right? What they say when a child development age happens from what 2 years old is when they learn everything. I think like by then they're already cooked. So you think leaving the past in the past is enough? Well, no. When things happen when they were younger, that's what makes them who they are today.
Every single one of us,
the past in the past, right? That's I hate when people say that. Having anger issues, right? Irritability, emotional numbness. And I know a lot of people have emotional numbness.
Ooh, that's a big one.
We're not even talking about it.
Yeah.
We don't care. Right? We see the person who don't business but nothing. You know, sometimes you meet some people, this happening and they don't even they don't even turn on, then turn off, they ain't with nothing.
Turn out.
Like, it's why would she? Emotional numbness. That's what that is.
That is so true.
Right?
And those, love a good silent and quiet type of guy. But sometimes that manifests in not being able to be emotional, to be able to express their emotions and their feelings, and to be vulnerable. Because if you find yourself having a hard time being vulnerable, that's a good indicator that, there were things in your past that caused you to withhold that part of you. And that's worth exploring, you know?
Yeah.
Some other issues that can show up is definitely behavioral issues. Difficulty forming or maintaining relationships. And, that happens a lot, and that can be more than romantic relationships. It can be friendships as well. Like you're always having problems with everybody and you got a problem. Maybe it's time to evaluate.
Yourself.
Maybe it could be me as well.
It could be you, you're right.
Distrust in others. Have you ever met somebody who don't trust nobody?
Maybe.
Distrust in others. You can't trust nobody. This person good for you. This person don't like you. This person don't da 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 da. That is a form of childhood trauma and how it can manifest in our lives.
Yeah.
Social withdrawal or isolation. I just want to be myself. I want to be by myself. I don't want to be with nobody. Me and me. And then me carnal. I ain't got time for deal with people. Why? Are you an island?
Yeah.
Are you surrounded by water? No, you're not. We all need community.
Correct. Correct. What else?
Aggressive or impulsive behavior.
Aggressive behavior, yeah.
Yeah, you can be aggressive, you can be impulsive, you just want to, whatever, you're just ready to act out. Anybody come for you, you ready. When somebody say jump, you say how high, you ready for go at it. And, obviously there's even more serious behaviors can show out, like self-harm, self-destructive behavior. And, if you find yourself self-harming, please reach out to someone who can help you get the help you need, because you're not alone. This is not something new. So please get the help you need if you find yourself, self-harming or having certain thoughts. Definitely reach out.
Yeah. Also, physical symptoms. A lot of times people don't think that childhood trauma could manifest physically, but a lot of times, trust me guys, these things manifest physically, right? So not sleeping, right? Chronic pain, obviously using drugs, using alcohol, all those things, right? Sexual dysfunction, right? You guys don't want that, guys. You guys don't want that, right? All that could stem from childhood trauma. Also having gastro problems, because sometimes every time you go out you're nervous for something, you gotta go to the toilet. Those are things affecting you back from childhood, because there are various reasons for that, right? So you might thinking, oh, I just get a bad stomach, not knowing it's some issues that you had way back when. Like these things manifest. It manifests, guys. It really does.
And, there's a book called The Body Keeps the Score, because sometimes you might not even recall a memory, but your body does.
Your body
so
does.
you might be trigger a certain smell, trigger a certain memory from your past.
Good or bad.
Yeah, that causes you to react in a certain way. So we have like cognitive effects, things that affect the brain, and then there's like problems focusing and concentration. Like if you got problems, you already know you can't focus. You go to work and the people job. You can't even focus on what's going on right now because you're stressed, mentally exhausted, and even for kids. So we're going back to childhood. Like Shaka said, like you witness domestic violence. Now you got to go to school.
You go to school.
How are you focusing on the lesson? You can't learn nothing.
I did my best. Though.
Nothing.
I did my best.
Memory lapses. There's a running joke that I don't remember a lot from my childhood. I do not. I don't know why.
Childhood trauma.
I didn't talk to my
That's
therapist.
why.
I don't remember a lot, to be honest.
Problems, a huge
yeah,
factor in
if you
childhood
have huge gaps in your memory, it's possible there are things your brain is trying to block out to protect you.
Protect you.
So there's poor decision as well. Like, you're just making poor decision. And that can also be an effect of that. And then, disassociate. And you basically disassociate yourself from reality, Like, I don't want to say this about myself, but I love reading, And one of the things I like about reading, especially reading books, that makes me feel good is because I can live in my own world, and in that world, it's amazing.
Create your own fantasy.
And then, when it ends, then I move on to a different world.
Creating your fan, but a lot of kids would do that too. You see them reading and stuff like that.
I read a lot as a child.
Yeah, because it's to go away. Even like Tyler Perry, he said that's what created his love for plays and writing plays, is that he wanted to create a different reality because he was experiencing a lot of domestic violence in his home and abuse, so he wanted to get away from that, so he would write plays and go into another world. So that's basically what it is.
Well, I need to channel all of this into some money-making habits.
Okay, so mental health disorder, obviously PTSD, any kind of anxiety, mood swings, personality disorders, having relationship problems for sure, difficulty trusting others, fear of intimacy or fear of commitment. Like, my father always used to cheat, so I want this man, come on, this cheat, or girls, or me mother cheat, so no, I want no woman I'm gonna ever married, but I'm gonna just make children and whatever. You know what I mean? So all of those things, come out. It's childhood trauma, right? Entering abusive relationship, even though you might see, a lot of people might say, okay, well, you see an abusive relationship, you shouldn't get into abusive relationship, but that's all you know. That's all you know. And what I say back home, and I hate this, what I say? What? If he not beat me, he not love me.
Ew. Who's saying that?
Yes, that's what I grew up hearing. I grew up hearing that. If he not beat me, he not love me. Translation,
reject
if he
that
doesn't
narrative.
hit me, that means he doesn't love me. And that's something hearing those things could cause somebody else to get into an abusive relationship themselves, right? So those are things that causes a lot of childhood trauma, right? So
so story time. An example of of feeling of insecurity. For example, I remember my version of my childhood trauma, a light version.
a light example. We'll give
a light example. So for us, primary school days, we definitely were always one of the last to be picked up. And we were talking about this the other day, because I'm like, we both experience anxiety, right? So I'm thinking, where did this anxiety come from? When did it start? You know? And I mentioned to her, I was like, I think this thing started for me. I can't recall, for you. When, in primary school, we would often be the last children being picked up from school because we wait for dad to come get us. Because he had his own business.
Yeah,
he was a busy man. So he was extremely busy, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of times we were the last to be picked up.
Last.
So think of last. School school lights turn off. The cleaner is gone from the
Security.
school. Security, just we in security. Security.
Sometimes security not even there,
Right?
Because some schools ain't get good security.
Yeah. And I remember, I think you were already out of school and went on to secondary school, but I remember one incident in primary
really?
school.
Oh my
Yeah, I was
God.
waiting last, and then this particular group of children that stayed back, they were like, I'm not going to call them terrible, but they were kind of terrible. No key. And I remember just waiting for my dad to come get me at the time. And I remember this one guy in my class, I don't know what was wrong with little boys back then. If they liked you, they just want to fight you and do the most. And he was basically took his stinky socks that he wore that day and tried to put it in my mouth. And I was like...
But all that happens when you're staying late. I know people don't see
the big deal, but it was
bullying.
scary.
I've experienced bullying from being the last child to be picked up, like for real.
Being the last child to be picked up and the last to arrive at school because we're always late too.
Which is another embarrassing thing.
A lot of anxiety. Okay, just like I remember going to school. You're already late. You got a big exam. You showed up to school late. It's like terrifying because a lot of times children are already at school. They're able to put their bags down and relax and rest. No, we always had to be in a rush. That's why think about it. Now when you rush, the anxiety is just triggered.
It's triggering for me a lot. Like I hate rushing, but I'm always rushing because that's all I know.
And that started since then. Think about it. It was since back then that was happening. And that can create so much stress issues for the child because it's like, can I count on you to be there for me when I need you, to be reliable, to be on time? Because it's important to me. I don't want to be the last child. I'm standing out like a sore thumb. Like, I go to school.
Yeah.
The teacher's like, oh, now you come to school. Like, I have no control over this. I got to come when my dad brings us to school. You
had to pick enough of we up though.
Yeah, we had a lot of houses to check up. So it was not straightforward, but it was still very stressful. It was very socially. It was stressful for me as a kid with with my friends and stuff like that because they already gone home. I still at the school. Why am I still at the school? I'm hungry, ready to take a shower, go to bed. I got homework to do. It was a stressful time.
Yeah, exactly. And that could definitely, as I mentioned, lead to anxiety. Like, so all those things, social issues, self-esteem issues, because you're there alone. You seem forgotten. You feel... Yeah, like,
literally, think about it. The school is quiet. And a quiet school is a haunted school.
The school is closed. The entire school is gone, and you're there alone, and it definitely causes anxiety issues as well.
Yeah.
Like I know you guys are like, you guys reaching, but no, we're not reaching.
This thing is affecting us to this day. I literally made the connection with the feeling of like that.
Rush.
More times than not, we were always late. I feel like that developed a pattern in us, to be honest. Because how often do you be early? Be honest.
I remember we had meeting at school, right? And that was when we were in high school now, and the teacher was telling my dad, oh my God, Shaka's always late. And he was like, oh, she takes after me.
That is something. That is something to say.
Thank you. I wasn't even hating on that because he owned it.
He didn't even bat an eye because he's like, normal things.
And I was like, well, I wasn't in trouble anymore.
I am usually early to her though. She's like chronically late. I mean, I'm medium late, but she is like late. She gives me anxiety with the level of lateness. It's like reliving my childhood all over again.
What? Oh my. So, I'll try to do better. I'll try and do better. If I'm causing triggers, I'll try to do better. Yeah, so definitely those things can cause anxiety. It can cause self-esteem issues and all those different things because it can lead to uncertainty, right?
Yes.
A lot of uncertainty, a lot of unpredictability. You don't know like what's happening next or what's happening. Because sometimes for me, it could be an issue why you're being picked up late too. So if the parents is having some kind of issues at home, that could cause the child to worry, as in like, what am I going home to?
Right.
Right, so self-worth issues, right?
Yeah.
That could definitely
affect
your self-worth, your self-esteem.
Yeah, I don't think he purposely like I would not pick them up. Ha ha ha. No, we don't think that was the case. Like we said, he was a busy man, but once again, it made us feel like not prioritized.
Yeah.
And also it sucked.
It sucked. Yeah, it really did. It really did. So how can we fix this childhood trauma? We talked about all the things that influences childhood trauma.
Yes.
How can we go on fixing this? Let's start talking about children. How can we fix it for children first?
First thing first, we gotta create stable environments, because when we provide a stable environment, when there's a routine, where there's predictability, it builds a sense of security within that child. If that child knows that they can rely on you to be at their school at 5 p.m. every single day to get them, that's a sense of security. They know when they get out of school, mommy, daddy, whoever is there to pick me up. And that can help set clear expectations, make them feel seen, make them feel valued, and once again, reduces the likelihood of feeling anxious about, whenever, you're not there. Because more than likely, let's say one day you're late. They know for a fact, okay, that's not like my mom or dad. They probably run a few minutes late.
Yeah, one day is nothing.
Yeah, but they know that mommy, daddy gonna come and get me.
They can count on you.
Yes,
they absolutely. They can count on you.
And we talk about the child, but we understood and recognized that parents also need support. Parents need a village, and we understand that we're aunties. Damn good aunties too, and we understand that part of showing up for a child is being a part of their village, being a caregiver, being a support. For example, if mommy, daddy can't pick the child up, they should be able to have other people they can call on. Hey, I'm running late for work. Can you go and get little Billy, little Gerard, whoever? I'm trying to get a Caribbean name. I'm like, Billy sounds like a Caribbean name.
But Gerard is.
Right? They should know that they're unconditionally loved and supported by different people that are part of their village.
Correct.
For education and caregivers, parents and teachers should be educated about the effects of childhood trauma and be able to recognize the signs early, so that they can provide the necessary resources that can help. Because think about it. Would you rather that child continue? It's like, think of it this way. A child got childhood trauma manifests itself like a bite on their arm, right? You are a teacher or a caregiver. You saw that bite on their arm. Do something. Grab some little methylated spirit, little Limacol, whatever. Clean the wound, metaphorically. Clean the wound to help put on a Band-Aid, help them heal this wound.
Yeah.
If you see that wound, aka childhood trauma on their arm, and do nothing about it, but you continue to see this wound become bigger and bigger over the years, as the years progress, festering in their arm, do you prefer to wait until this entire arm is gone before you offer them assistance, when you could have helped them when the trauma was right there? So recognize the signs early on. Correct. So that they can
be
heal.
Educated.
Yes. There's like a popular saying that I love: raise children who do not need to heal from their childhood. Yes. And I know that's a tall order, because even parents who do their very best can unintentionally harm their kids. But we need to recognize, even when we do mess up, go back, acknowledge it, work on it, work on a way to fix it. Nobody is perfect. We're not asking, or we're not expecting perfection from anyone.
Correct.
But we're expecting you to be accountable for your actions and to be highly cognizant, highly aware of the child.
Correct.
Social support is so important, because once again, if there's friends, there's community that is safe, that has the best, has the children's best, it creates an environment of security for that child and children. And it once again helps them to flourish, rather than to experience trauma that can continue to fester as they grow older.
Exactly. That's so good because you want to see that child grow, and especially like have education about it. Like even teachers, like if you may not have been given as much literature or whatever, do your own research.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't take time asking a child.
Yeah, Rihanna's internet is free 99.
Free 99. Like why? Ask a child, why are you constantly late? For me, it doesn't take. I was a teacher. And that doesn't take anything out of you because for me, I was never concerned with, I just gotta go and teach this topic. I gotta make sure they did well in school, whatever. Yeah, of course, that's important, but you are their home away from home per se. And if they're not getting that support, you need to give that support. And I know that's a tall order for teachers, right? So I'm gonna pay them more, right? It's a tall order for teachers, but just asking that simple question, right, could really change a child's life. So you want to ensure that you at least try your best to help that child, right? So for adults now, because you're an adult, you experience childhood trauma, what do you think that you can do, or what you think that, or what you can do to help to fix your past? Obviously, number one, we're going to always talk therapy. We always echo that on the show. Get some counseling, get some help, right? Getting that therapy, learning about your childhood, learning what affects you, your experiences, that really goes a long way in fixing and learning who you are. Joining support groups, especially, if you're in any kind of abuse or whatever, alcohol abuse or even domestic violence, whatever, having some support groups. Go online, right? If you can't find resources, go online. Practice self-care, right? Because if you can care yourself, fix yourself, right, you can definitely fix your child, but that can also help heal you. And building healthy relationships, right? Having healthy relationships definitely helps you heal your childhood, because you don't want to somebody in your past hurt you. They created this wound. You going back, getting reinfected, or messing up that wound. So learn from it and be like, maybe that relationship was not the most healthiest.
Learn from it.
Yeah, because sometimes when you go back, it triggers you. So make sure you're building healthy relationship as an adult. We don't need to have the relationship that we had when we were a child. You're an adult. Like, you can cut them off. Like, no, guess what? They can't beat you.
They can try.
They could try, but they can't beat you. I said that. Do they still rice you? That's what we say, right? In Guyana. If you're right, I'm sorry. You can't. There's nothing you can say
rice
anymore.
You mean, mind you, support
Take care of you. Yes, take care
pay
of
your
you.
bills. Can you pay my bills? Can you pay my telephone bills?
Yes, and continued education. Learn about these things, guys, right? If you want to get better, you need to learn the ways to get better. You need to learn how these things are affecting you. And that's the reason why we have this podcast. I really hope that you paid attention and take focus on the things that affects childhood trauma, so you can realize and recognize, I think I have that. Or, maybe this is happening to my child. How can I fix it, right? But learn what could have caused your childhood trauma. Do some research, listen to our podcast, go to therapy, but definitely go online, right? And get that information in how you can better yourself, right? Because that's basically what we want to do. We want to be aware so we can help fix ourselves. So ensure you try to learn more about these topics, right? Because we're just giving you a little drop.
Yeah,
just a little drop. And there's a lot of information, but this is just a little drop.
Yeah, it's just it's just a start.
It's just a start.
It's just a start.
Yeah, but this is something that we really wanted to do, because things that happens in the past, it absolutely affects you in the future, and this is something that we really want to focus on, because this is definitely a start on getting better, healing your trauma, healing yourself, and most importantly, healing your children.
Yeah.
Right?
breaking generational curses.
Exactly.
Yes.
So
Or traumas, because some people don't like the word curses.
yeah, if you don't like the word curses, trauma is good. So thank you so much for tuning in. That was a bit of a heavy topic. I know that a lot of you guys might need a minute to let resonate and basically take some time to talk, and go over the stuff that we did. But we want to move on to our next segment, things nice bad, whereby we talk about the things that we love, things that we admire, things that we do that we absolutely love. So what we like this week, Kiana?
So this week, I'm highlighting the thing that allows me to escape, give me a little escape when I need it.
Talked about that earlier.
And it's books. I love books. I love reading. And yeah, so this week I want to highlight my book club. Kiki Be Reading book club. So if you want to, if you want
Kiki
to,
Kiana,
yeah,
I didn't get it.
Kiana, Kiki, aka Kiki. Those that know. So if you want to be a part of my book club, it's relatively easy. Just follow my Instagram page for now at Kiki Be Reading Book Club, and you'll see all of the books I've read. I've posted the book I read in April. I've also posted the one I've read in May, and I usually do a little recap. But I'm hoping to, really launch this book club so that we can actually meet up in virtually, because I know we're all over the place, and we can, have discussions about books. And I do read serious books, but I be reading for fun, okay? My books are very fun.
I'm a serious reader.
I do both, but in my book club, it's for fun, okay?
Good, it's
fiction, nice. Romance. I love a good romance book. I always love it. So if that's your cup of tea, come through to Kiki Be Reading Book Club, and yeah, it's fun.
So what are you reading this month?
So this month I'm reading this romance book it's called While We're Still Dating, and I'm almost done. I'm sad. I always get sad when I'm getting towards the end, because you live in the pages and you get to know these characters, you get to know their what they're like, and then it's over, and I'm like, damn, I missed you.
Sad.
And I have to move on to someone else. Or if I really like the book, I may reread it, but not right away, but maybe a couple months down the line. But yeah, if you're someone like me, or you were into trying to find a new hobby, just follow Kiki Be Reading Book Club. And yeah, this has been quite a lot. We know, childhood trauma is something that a lot of people don't want to talk about or even acknowledge that they've had to dealt with some of those things. And we hope this episode will shed a light on what childhood trauma is, and maybe it is a starting point for you to really ask yourself some tough questions about your childhood, and it will push you in a direction where you can get the necessary help, necessary support and healing that you need, because a lot of us, most of us, we're shaped by our childhood. We're all started as an empty slate, and our childhood years are most, our formative years. They are very, impactful in terms of what was taught to us, what got encoded into our DNA. And those things last a lifetime. A lot of who we are is because of the childhoods we've had. So please take this seriously. Watch this episode, share it with a loved one, rewatch it, write down some of the stuff we have. But more importantly, start asking yourself serious questions, And if you have kids, think about your children, and think about what can you do now that can help them to grow up in an environment that is safe, that is secure, and that will give them the best fighting chance at a life that is not traumatic. So we encourage you to get the necessary help, get the necessary resources. We're just a starting point, but please do the work. Your children depend on it. You depend on it for yourself. Correct. So do the work for you. And if you have any questions, feel free to send us a message on any of our platforms. We're on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, and here on YouTube. And our handle is the same, Lyman and Healing. And Lyman and Healing because we vibe out, and we heal, okay? Because we do both at the same time.
Yep.
And please don't forget to share, subscribe, like this episode with your loved ones and your friends. We do appreciate it. You know, we're still relatively new, so we depend on your viewership and your, you know, your assistance in getting our names out there. So we're thankful for that. You know, we hope to continue to bring more of these. But in the meantime, in between time, until we see you again, remember to